So good morning, everyone. So we will continue our discussion from the previous class. Okay. So where we were discussing about different solution techniques for a set of linear equations, linear algebraic equations. Initially, we started. I hope you can hear me. Can somebody confirm? You can hear me and see the
Yes, sir. We
screen.
can see. We can hear also.
Okay. So we started with the direct method. There are other direct methods also, like Gaussian elimination, which we did not study. It's a slow method, not used very much. You can study on your own if you want. But we studied a method which is used frequently, which is known as TDMA, tridiagonal matrix algorithm. It is used for 1D problems because in 1D problems the equations that we get those can be arranged in such a way in the matrix form such that the coefficient matrix has only three diagonals, has values in only three diagonals, all the other values are zero. So it is known as a tridiagonal matrix, and because of this special property, it can be solved much faster as compared to a normal matrix, means equation with a normal uh, coefficient matrix. So means we have discussed that the order of calculation in that case is equal to the number of unknowns n instead of n cube. Then we have discussed that although that can be used for 1D problem, for 2D and 3D, bad network quality. Connection is still there, right? You can still hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then we have discussed that although it can be used for 1D problem, for 2D and 3D problem, because the coefficient matrix will be pentadiagonal or heptadiagonal, means there will be 5 diagonals or 7 diagonals apart from the other values which are 0. Directly we cannot use the TDMA method. So we can use some sort of iterative solution for that. Okay. And there are various iterative methods. We will touch only a couple of like 3 methods. So the first one that we have seen is known as Jacobi method. Okay, very basic method. Where say you have a set of n equations. Uh, so if you have a set of n equation for any of the from any of the equation, so from each of the equation, one of the unknown variable can be defined in terms of all the other unknown variables from the previous. So because all the previous iteration values will be known, we can calculate new value of the unknown variable. So each equation gives the new value of one unknown variable. So if there are n unknowns and n equations, you can get the updated values of the n unknowns, and then you can again iterate, go for the next iteration to again update the values of the n unknowns like this until you see there from the previous iteration value to the next iteration value. So you define a parameter which is known as tolerance limit or convergence criteria. So which basically governs how much error you are going to. So if your convergence criteria is 10 to the power, you say that if all the variable values do not change more than 10 to the power minus 3 between the previous iteration and this iteration, then I will say that convergence has occurred. If all the values do not change but one value changes more than 10 to the power minus 3, then also convergence has not occurred. Change below that limit. Okay, you can have different convergence criteria for different values, but generally it is a single convergence criteria for all the values. Okay, so like this we do. So if you have a domain say n equal to 100, so 100 grid points, so you will have 100 unknown variables. Say you have a 2D domain with 10 by 10 grid points, so 100 grid points, you will have 100 unknown, all these 100 unknown variables may be temperature or some other variable. So temperature has these 100 unknown grid points. Okay, so you have to check the temperature at each grid point with the previous iteration value. Yeah, for all the grid points, if it connection was not there again. Did you miss anything?
Voice breaks.
Let me just repeat my point. Why? What is the problem? Things are getting day by day. Things are getting worse. Last semester was internet connection was much better. Even the institute connection has become very poor for some reason. Let me try the institute connection. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Connection is poor. I will just repeat that part. So I was saying that if you have a
Screen, sir.
what happens? I cannot hear you.
Share your screen, sir.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Sorry. So I was saying that if you have a domain, 2D domain with say 10 by 10 grid points, okay. So total 100 grid points. So it means that there are 100 unknowns, 100 unknown variables. The variable is same, say it may be temperature or velocity or something. Any variable, it can be pressure, velocity, temperature. So the because there are 100 grid points, you have the temperature, unknown temperature at 100 grid points, and in each iteration you just check, you just update the value of the temperature for each grid point. So for this 100 grid points, and check the values with the corresponding previous iteration value. So for the first grid point, you check with the previous iteration value of the first grid point, and the convergence criteria is satisfied only when you reach the change, the change that occurs is less than the given criteria. Say if it is 10 to the power minus 4 for all the grid points, not for some of the grid points or most of the grid points. If it's for all the grid points, then on. So just a second. So you do not use absolute values, although absolute values can be used for convergence criteria, but it is better to use relative values. So previous value, so or this time step value minus previous value by this time step value. Okay, so it gives you the relative change that is occurring, and that is more suitable because although for some variables the values may be large. For example, temperature values are large. So if you take 10 to the power minus 3 as convergence criteria for temperature, it should be okay. But some variables may have very small values. Okay. So for example, say for some problem we are solving for viscosity or something, some other variable which has 10 to the power minus 3 or something like that value. So in that case, obviously the absolute value that the change in the absolute value will be very small. So even for the initial iterations, so you will not be able to capture accurate solution unless you take the relative values, the relative changes. So it is always better to take relative changes, okay, for calculating the convergence criteria. So similar method has been slightly modified, which we have studied subsequently, which is known as Gauss-Seidel method. Okay, and the only difference was that in Gauss-Seidel method, instead of using all the old iteration values, we use the known values, latest known values. So for example, if you have iterated up to say, so say there are n unknowns and n equations, and if you have iterated up to I number of unknowns, or you have calculated the new values up to I number of unknowns. So you will use the new values for those I unknowns, and for rest of the values you will use the old iteration value. Okay, so this mathematically this was written like this in two parts. So if there are n equations, say if there are 100 equations and up to 40 equations we have already done the iteration, current iteration. So I have the known values of 40 or updated values, not known, updated values for 40 unknowns. So I will use the updated values for 40 unknowns. Then 41st unknown you are calculating, and from 42nd to 100th unknown you are using the old iteration value. Then next, like this, when you proceed, when you go to the 42nd unknown, so up to 41 you already have the values, and from 43rd you are using the old iteration value. Like this you will proceed. So you are using some extra information as compared to the Jacobi method. Okay. So up to this we have seen in the previous class. So I have kept this example open. So and we have discussed towards the end of the class because time was still there, that this method does not always converge. So this is not only true for Gauss-Seidel, like Jacobi method also. Same thing actually is true. They don't always converge. Okay, they only converge under certain conditions. Okay, they only converge under certain conditions, which we are going to study today. But you cannot means you can guarantee their convergence, but this equations or the equations for the iterations has to satisfy certain conditions for both the methods. Okay, so again let me just repeat the example that we were going through in the previous class. So our equation had two unknowns and two equations. Okay, so we had a set of linear equations, linear algebraic equations with two unknowns. 2x1 plus x2 equal to 6 and x1 plus 3x2 equal to 13. and we have devised this iterative scheme. X1k is equal to 6 minus x2k minus 1 by 2, because x2 was unknown at this point, and for the second variable x2k is equal to 13 minus x1k divided by 3. Okay, because x1 is already known, updated at this point, and we have seen that this gives the correct solution, and the convergence is faster as compared to the Jacobi method. Okay, similar type of convergence are occurring in more iterations. For Gauss-Seidel method, it takes less iterations, faster convergence. But at the end of the class, I was also showing you one example. Instead of this, like I was showing on the, by writing it on the whiteboard. Say instead of this, if we take, I will keep that equation open, old one. And same example again, 2x1 plus x2 equal to 6 and x1 plus 3x2 equal to 13. So this note is already uploaded in the file section. Okay, this is for today. So if I write the iterative equations in a different form, so for example, from the second equation, if I take x1, so x1k is equal to 13 minus 3 x2k, and from the first equation, if I take x2, x2k is equal to 6 minus 2 x1k. Actually, the same solution should have been obtained, because it does not matter what is the order of equations. I could have written this second equation first and the first equation second. So ideally, this should not have mattered how we are calculating x1 and x2. But what we have seen in the previous class is that the values rapidly diverge. The values rapidly goes towards the wrong direction. So if you start with iteration 0 in both cases, the first value of x1 is 13 minus 0, so 13. Similarly, first value of x2 is 6 minus 2 into 13, so minus 20, then 73, minus 140, and it keeps on increasing rapidly. Okay, this is known as divergence. You are going in the opposite direction, so your results are not converging. They are going in the opposite direction and will blow up. Okay, after a few iterations, you will see that the result has become infinite. And when you run the program, it will show something like NaN or something like that. Okay, so solutions diverge. Okay, and we have discussed that Gauss-Seidel method does not always converge. Same is true for Jacobi method. I have not written it here. Okay, and if we have a discretized equation of this form, okay, this is our general form of the discretized equation, right? If you remember, because this we have repeatedly encountered, whether it is a simple diffusion problem, steady state diffusion problem with source term, transient problem with transient term, source term and diffusive term. In all the three types of problem, we have seen that the equation after discretization is written in this form. For any grid point P, we write it as APTP is equal to summation of all the neighboring values, summation A and B, T and B, where A and B are the coefficients, plus B. Okay. So this is for a single grid point. Similarly, if you have n unknown grid points, like say I was giving the case 10 by 10 grid points, in those cases 100 unknowns will be there, and we will have 100 equations of the same form. Okay. So for all these cases, if you want to use these iterative schemes, Gauss-Seidel or Jacobi method, there is a condition which guarantees that the convergence will occur. Okay, this condition is known as Scarborough criteria. This condition is a sufficient condition. There are two types of conditions. One is known as necessary condition and one is known as sufficient condition. Necessary condition is such type of condition where you need that condition, otherwise convergence will not occur. Okay, it is absolutely necessary. Okay, and sufficient condition is a type of condition where if the condition is satisfied, it guarantees that the convergence will occur. Okay, so these are two different types of condition. One is known as a necessary condition, which is essential or necessary, without which convergence cannot occur. But a necessary condition may not be sufficient. Means without satisfying a necessary condition, convergence will 100% not occur. But if we satisfy a necessary condition, convergence may or may not occur. Okay. On the other hand, for sufficient condition, if you do not satisfy a sufficient condition, still convergence may occur. But if you do satisfy a convergence, if you do satisfy a sufficient condition, convergence will be guaranteed. Okay. And in some cases, you might have seen in maths problem, it is written as necessary and sufficient condition. Okay. So it means that this is necessary also, without this convergence will not occur, and it is also sufficient that with this condition convergence will occur. Okay. So this Scarborough criteria is only a sufficient condition, not a necessary condition. Okay. So it will guarantee that convergence will occur, but without satisfying this criteria also in many cases convergence will occur. If luck is good, convergence will occur even without satisfying this condition. There is no necessary condition. Okay. In some cases, even without satisfying this also, convergence can occur. Okay. So what is this condition? If we have an equation of this form, APTP is equal to summation of A and B T and B plus B. This condition states that this criteria states that summation of the absolute values of all the neighboring coefficients. Okay, summation of absolute values of all the neighboring coefficients by the absolute value of the current grid point coefficient AP. Okay, needs to be less than equal to 1 for all equations. So if you have 100 equation, it needs to be less than equal to 1 for all the 100 equations. Means summation of mod A and B, some mod of AP for all the equation, all the 100 equations, and has to be less than, means it has to be less than equal to 1 for all the equation and has to be less than 1 for at least one equation. Okay, at least one equation it has to be less than 1. Then you can guarantee that convergence will occur. Okay, otherwise also convergence can occur, but it may not also occur. So that is the criteria, and that is what I have just discussed. I have written here. This is not a necessary condition, but a sufficient condition. Okay, we will discuss it all even further. So if you look back at our, if I keep this open, Scarborough criteria, and look back at our equations. So in this case, Gauss-Seidel method, we have devised a scheme like this: 2x1 plus x2 equal to 6. So x1k is equal to 6 by 2, means 3 minus half x2 k minus 1. Okay. So if this is the unknown variable, the coefficient AP in this case is how much?
1.
1. And what is the coefficient of all the neighboring points? Although this is not from discretized problem, there is only one unknown variable and the coefficient of this is minus half, right? Minus 1 by 2. So absolute value is half, and for this absolute value is 1. So this condition is satisfied, means it is actually less than 1. And similarly for the second equation also we have to check, because both the equation needs to satisfy that criteria. Second equation also, this is 1 and this is 1 by 3. So it is satisfied, and or you can take a look at this form also. So in this case AP is equal to 1 if you just take 2x1 is equal to 6 minus x2, and summation A and B will be, so AP will be 2 and summation A and B will be 1. And in this case AP will be, because we will take 3x2 on this side and minus x1 on the other side, AP will be 3 and the summation of absolute value of A and B will be 1. So both these conditions, both these iterative equations will satisfy this Scarborough criteria, and solution is guaranteed in that case. In the other case that we have seen today, same equations but written in a different form. In this case the coefficient AP, mod of AP is 1 and mod of A and B, so this is not A and P, okay, this is A and B. Mod of A and B is 3. So it does not satisfy this Scarborough criteria. Even if one equation does not satisfy, it does not satisfy. Okay. So this does not satisfy. Even the second equation is also not satisfying. So even if one equation does not satisfy, it does not satisfy this Scarborough criteria. And in this case, there is no guarantee that convergence will occur. There might have been convergence, but in our case, unfortunately, convergence has not occurred. We cannot guarantee that convergence will occur. Okay. So in this case, solutions have diverged, but in some cases, it might have converged if luck was good. Okay. So that is the. So the main point is that we can, in discretization also, we can change the way in the way in which the equations are discretized, so that this we try to satisfy this condition if you are using those methods. Okay, not line by line TDMM, which we are going to study later, for which case it is not required. So what happens is that if some coefficients are negative, okay, and if you remember the form of the equation from our old discussion, somewhere it will be there long time back. Let me see. This is check this one. On the steady state with heat source. Without heat source also we must have done previously. Anyway, let this be the case. This is too small in your screen because my screen is big. It looks okay, but let me keep this open. So what we had seen in this case was the discretized equation without linearly dependent or a non-linear source term, means if the source term is constant or there is no source term, then APTP is equal to, means any equation is of the form APTP equal to AT plus AW TW plus B, or like if you have more unknowns, means if it's a 2D problem, you will have plus AN TN plus ASTS. Okay. AP is all equal to the summation of the other neighboring coefficients. AP is equal to AE plus AW plus say if there it is a 2D problem, AN plus AS. Okay, like this form. Unless you have an SP term. SP, if you remember, is a part of the source term which is linearly dependent. Okay. So if that is there, our form of the equation changes to some other form like this. We must have studied this also somewhere. To the problem anywhere is there, not here. To do with source term we must have studied, right? Yes. So again, this is of this form. AP is equal to AE plus AW plus AN plus S. If there is a transient term, then transient term also comes into picture, and negative source term also comes into picture. If these are not there, it is always equal to the sum of the coefficient values. Okay. So in that case, if you take a very simple problem and some of the coefficients are negative, say for some reason, some of the, actually it cannot be negative the way we have this defined, but hypothesis would have been negative, then what would have happened is that the sum of this, okay, which would have been equal to AP would have been less. So summation of this A and B would have been less than summation of mod of A and B. Okay, because some terms are negative, the sum would have been, total value would have been less as compared to summation of mod of A and B. Okay, where you take only the positive values for like only the positive form of the values, and in that case this criteria will not be satisfied, which means that because AP will be equal to summation of A and B, and summation of A and B is less than summation of mod A and B. So this criteria will not be satisfied because AP will be less, this value will be greater than 1. Okay. So in a way, you can say initially we have discussed some time back some conditions that are required or for deriving our coefficients. One condition is that all the coefficients are positive, okay, or of the same sign. So that actually helps us in a way where this can be avoided. Okay, automatically this type of thing is avoided if you have all the coefficients as positive. Okay. Then without a source term, without a source term, let us go back to where our 14 we have already closed. Summation A and B by AP is equal to 1 for internal grid points. Okay. So this condition is satisfied, but we need at least one equation which is like this, has to be less than 1, and that type of condition comes from the discretized equations at the boundary conditions. Okay, that type of equation comes from the boundary conditions. In actually we do not check for this when we actually solve a practical problem, and in some cases what may happen is that unfortunately means if luck is good, solution will be converged. If luck is bad, solution will get diverged if you use this type of situation. But it is better to check for this type of conditions. But obviously you cannot, if you want to check every time, it will take a lot of computational resource. Okay, so our discretization scheme has to be such that most of these conditions are guaranteed. Okay, if there is a source term with negative SP, then again it is guaranteed that the summation A and B will be less than no, this is not correct, I guess. Something is wrongly written here. Because in that case, AP should be less. Oh, no, minus AP is there, right? Minus AP term. Correct. Minus SP term is there, correct. No, this is correct. So AP has the minus SP term. So your AP will be actually larger than the sum of the neighboring coefficients. So this condition will get satisfied in that case. That is why we also means when we are discussed that we need a negative SP term so as to ensure that AP is always positive. That also plays a role in satisfying this Scarborough criteria in like as a side effect. So this criteria is necessary for these two iterative schemes. Okay, if you compare this Gauss-Seidel method to the Jacobi method, it is faster than the Jacobi method, but still the convergence is slow. Okay, convergence is slow as compared to other. There are other types of scheme where this convergence is faster. The information from boundary conditions. So if you have a domain like this, okay, so you have a 2D domain like this, and if you proceed like this, 1 by 1 point, you will keep on iterating because you will have, say you have 10 by 10 grid points, you have 100 grid points, and you proceed one grid point, second grid point like this. Each equation you are separately treating, right? Each equation we are separately treating. So it is not written here. Where is that 14? So each equation we are separately treating like this, and one by one point we are proceeding. So after one full round of iteration, your boundary condition will only proceed by one grid point. Okay, means it will go inside by one grid point. Why this is the case? Because of the nature of the solution, means the way we have written it. So in actual cases, when you have this form AP, like where is the form? APTP is equal to summation A and B T and B. Okay, so when solving for the next adjacent grid point to the boundary, say this grid point, this value and these values are taken into account, and this information is used for calculating the new value. So this boundary information is actually used for calculating the new value. But for the next value, the boundary condition is not directly used. Okay, indirectly it is used. So it takes a lot of time for the boundary information to pass to the internal grid points. And there are faster iterative methods where the boundary conditions are passed internally in one pass itself, means not one iteration, directly, means in one step of the iteration along one line and along one entire line. Okay, so that method is known as line by line TDMA, and that is what we are going to study next. Okay, which is much faster, obviously, as compared to this type of point. So all these two schemes that we have studied are point by point iterative schemes. Okay, both these schemes that we have studied are known as point by point iterative scheme or point iterative schemes. Point by point you are going. Okay, you are not utilizing the nature of the domain, means nature of the domain is 2D or 3D. So you are not utilizing that, you are just checking the equations. If there are 100 equations or 1000 equations, you are assuming that there are 100 points and each point you are going through one by one. Okay, but this line by line TDMA actually uses the nature of the domain, means if you have a 2D domain, you utilize the fact that it is a 2D domain. If you have a 3D domain, you utilize the fact that it is 3D domain, and then divide the problem into a 1D problem for a part of the domain and proceed along another direction. Okay, so let us discuss about this line by line TDM. Any questions on what we have discussed till now? Today's class is short. Okay, already you can see half material is covered. I did not want to start the new chapter today, which is the convection diffusion problem, which will start in the next class. This course is running along at the correct pace, means it will get finished in time. We won't need extra classes, unlike gas turbine course. And so before starting this, let me just take a short break because my throat is hurting, and then we will finish. We'll take another 40 minutes maybe to finish the class. Okay. Meanwhile, you can think of any questions if you have. So we will continue. I hope you can still hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Can someone? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you. So there are other methods also like Gauss-Seidel. Okay, like successive over relaxation. I will just mention it later, but we will not study those methods. Let us study this line by line TDMA method. Okay, so say you have a 2D domain and you have created a mesh or a discretized grid along the x and y direction. Okay, so this type of methods you need a structured type of grid for this type of methods. Okay, so you have a progression along the x direction where each of the grid points is given by increase in I. Okay, starting from I equal to 1, I equal to 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. And along the y direction the progression is given as increase in j, index is j. So j equal to 1, j equal to 2, j equal to 3 like this. So any point can be located in terms of its I and j value. So for example, say this point has I is equal to 10, j or I is equal to 5, j equal to 5, something like that. Okay. So this is our, so if we consider any grid point like this, we know that the equation can be written in this form. APTP is equal to AWTW plus AET plus ANTN plus ASTS plus source term B. Okay. So what is done to solve this problem by TDMA? TDMA only, if you remember, can accommodate 1D problem where there is the matrix has 3 diagonals and all the other values are 0. So we break down this problem into a set of 1D problems. Okay. So what we do is, say you consider this vertical line here that I have shown by this box. Okay. If you consider this vertical line, okay, at any moment in calculation, say you have reached this point. Okay, you have this, you are at this vertical line. So for this vertical line, let all the points have unknown values. Okay, for example, this point has unknown value, this point has unknown value, this point unknown, 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 like this. Okay, so for P, this N and S, Tn and Ts are unknown values. Okay. However, our equation has, so our equation can be written as APTP plus APTP is equal to ASTS plus ANTN in terms of the unknown, plus everything else in a factor like B plus AW, TW and AET, where TW and T we are going to take from known values. Okay, so known values can be from previous iteration or even can be from this iteration if the calculation has already been done. For example, if we have already done the calculation for the previous line like this, okay, W value will be updated, already known to us. So we can take the current iteration W value, but E value will be the old iteration value because we have not yet proceeded to this next line. So both W and E values we will take as known values, whatever is the latest known value, okay, and put them together along with the source term, okay. So the known part of the equation. So in this way, what we can do is we can break down the equation. So I have written the same thing here. We can use TDMA along one direction, like a 1D problem, by taking old iteration values or known values for the other direction. Okay. So for example, so let me keep the diagram open here for reference. For example, we can use TDMA for the J direction. For the J means for the Y direction as follows. We take all the 3 unknowns in one side minus ASTS for the kth iteration unknown value, which is unknown obviously. Kth iteration has not been done here. APTP for the kth iteration, so again unknown value. TP for the kth iteration is not known. Minus ANTN for the k iteration, again it is unknown. Okay. Is equal to AWTW for the kth iteration, it is known because we have already done the same calculation for the previous vertical line. Okay, so it is known. And AET k minus 1 because t value is not known in this current iteration. We have to take the previous iteration value. Okay, plus B because B was there already in the equation. So we have an equation which is of the one-dimensional form. Okay, and we can plot it similar to the, so what we will get a form like this. Okay, we have discussed this. This is from the previous day. We will have 3 diagonals minus something plus this AP minus some other coefficient, and all the other diagonals are 0. Similarly, 0, minus, minus, and 0. And here you have the known values, which has this B plus all these things together in this part. Okay. So it can be now, because of this form, because the matrix is tridiagonal, means the coefficient matrix is tridiagonal, you can solve it directly. Okay. Instead of iterative method, you can solve it directly to obtain the value in one go. Okay. By using TDMA. So this entire line we can cover in one go. Okay. It is not that point by point we are going. In one go, we can entirely directly solve the line. However, the values will not be accurate because it is using iterative values, means previous iteration values. So still we need to check for convergence, means this has to be repeated. So what is the process now? You start from the, so if the boundary temperature is given, you start from the next set of grid points, vertical line or horizontal line. You can do in any direction. So say we are taking for the vertical line. Okay. So we use the previous iteration values, which are known values, and calculate directly all the values for this line. Okay. In one step, like we have done using TDMA. Then you go to the next vertical line and take this current iteration value of this previous vertical line and old iteration value of the next line, and then solve for this line. Okay, once it is solved, you go to the next line. Like this, you keep on doing until the entire domain is covered. So this direction in which this vertical line is moving is known as the sweeping direction. You are sweeping from I is equal to 1 to I is equal to n. Okay. And the direction in which you are using the TDMA is known as the traverse direction, where you are directly calculating all the values together. Okay. So entire J direction is solved directly in one iteration. One iteration means, actually one iteration is not the correct term, means you can say one step of the iteration. Okay. Then the calculation is moved to the next north-south line. Okay. Which is known as sweeping. Okay. So by doing this, what we are doing, instead of trying to go point by point, for say if this grid was large, 1000 by 100 by 100 points, so 10,000 points. What will we have? We will have each TDMA will have 100 unknowns, okay, which can be directly solved very quickly. And you proceed to the next line, so you will have to repeat the TDMA 100 times to cover one iteration. Okay, 100 unknowns, and you have to cover 100 times for one iteration. Instead of 10,000 points, so instead of having a coefficient matrix of the size 10,000 by 10,000, which is a huge matrix, here you have a coefficient matrix of 100 by 100, and then you repeat the calculation 100 times, which will take much less time as compared to solving a 10,000 by 10,000 coefficient matrix. Okay, which would have been the case if you go point by point. So that is the advantage. And if you compare with the previous methods, the boundary information along the sweeping direction, means along the I direction, passes at the rate of 1 grid per iteration, similar to, okay, boundary information passes at the rate of 1 grid point per iteration. However, along this traverse direction, the boundary information passes directly in one step from one side to the other side, means the entire vertical length is covered in one step. All the boundary information passes because you are directly solving this. Okay, you are not iteratively solving it. So all the points are dependent on all the other points, values of all the other points. And directly you are solving the entire set of equations. Okay, so the entire information is passed along the vertical line very quickly. Okay, so if we alternate the sweeping direction, say you are taking this vertical line and moving along to the next vertical line like this for one iteration. In the next iteration, instead of doing the vertical, means you are, instead of doing horizontal sweep, you do vertical sweep, means you take this horizontal line, then the next horizontal line, then the next horizontal line, like this. Then in the next iteration, this information from these boundaries will pass rapidly in one step to all the interior domains. Okay. So previous iteration, information was passed very rapidly along the vertical direction. Now by changing the direction 90 degree, we are passing the information in the other direction very rapidly. Okay. So by alternating the sweeping direction, we can accelerate the convergence significantly. Okay. Alternate direction implicit scheme, something like that term you will hear sometimes. So that is actually you are alternating the sweeping direction. Okay. Boundary information is brought to the interior region quickly. Along the line, along the traverse direction, the boundary information is passed at once. Along the sweep direction, the boundary information is passed one grid point at a time. So if you are changing this traverse direction every time, then the information is passed along the traverse direction very quickly and you can accelerate the convergence. Okay. So if it is a 3D problem, again you can do the same thing. For the 3D problem, you should understand that it is just an extension of the 2D problem. So you will have two more unknowns. ATP means A top, T top plus A bottom, T bottom. So there will be 6 neighboring points. Again, you just take 2 neighboring points. You just take a single one directional line and then first sweep along this plane and then for the next plane along sweep along this plane, for the next plane along sweep along this plane. So you have to continue for all the planes. Okay. Then you change the direction. For the same plane now you take horizontal direction and sweep along the vertical direction like this. Then you change the direction again along the third direction and you sweep along the other two directions. Okay. So like that it can be much faster. Although it looks like a lot of steps are involved, still it will involve 100 by 100 means 100 if there are 100 grid points in each direction. So sweeping along 100 grid points and each grid point you need to solve a 100 by 100 matrix. And then in 3D you have to sweep along the other direction also 100 times. So 100 into 100, 10,000 times you have to sweep where each matrix has a size of 100 by 100. Instead of each matrix having a size of 100 cube by 100 cube, which is 1 million by 1 million points, which is a huge matrix. Matrix inversion will take a lot of time. Directly you cannot solve. And other types of iterative scheme will also take a lot of time. Because you will be point by point sweeping for the 100 million, 1 million points. So TDMA, line by line TDMA, this method is known as line by line TDMA, it is much faster. And in some physical problems, it depends on the nature of the problem. Depending on the nature of the problem, if you select the sweeping direction, it is the convergence is much faster. For example, if I have flow from left side to the right side, say flow in a pipe or something, some hot fluid is coming from one side in a channel and it goes to the other side. If my sweep direction also is aligned with the flow direction, sweep direction goes from this side to this side, the information will travel very fast from this boundary which is bringing the information like hot boundary or whatever velocity condition is there, and this information will be passed to the entire domain very fast. Okay. If you try to sweep in the opposite direction to the flow, the convergence will take longer time. It is not only about bringing the information from the boundary, it is how far the convergence is occurring, and convergence will take lot of time. Even it may be difficult to converge also in case you are sweeping along the opposite direction. This we see many times in our own codes also when we write a code and say we have written a code, we cannot change the code itself, right? If we have written a long code, say I have written a long code, 5,000 line code for solving the Navier-Stokes equation and some physical problem, say flow occurs over a cylinder or something, over a circular cylinder, something like that. And if I want to solve that problem, so I might have already written the code in which the sweep occurs from left to right side and from bottom to top side. Okay. Although we could have written it like this, one sweep occurs from left to right, then again from right to left like this, alternating the direction. But if I write like this, from left to right and from bottom to top, okay. Then when I give the boundary condition such that the known velocity is on the left side, like flow is occurring from the left side, and on the other side it is like open. So just outflow condition is there, and the cylinder is in between. So flow over a cylinder, flow comes from one side, or like aerofoil is there, flow comes from the left side and goes over the other side, it is very easy to get convergence. When I want to repeat the same problem, but now the flow comes from the other side, from the right side. Okay, it is the same problem, but I am just trying to solve it in a different way. I am taking the aerofoil in a different orientation. Instead of this, say, same thing is there, but with the other orientation. We should get the same result, but the actual case, what will happen is that convergence might be difficult, or even it might slow down, or even it might be very difficult. Okay. So, for example, if I see if this domain, so even with when we write our own course, the same thing you can see. Okay. Generally, we don't check all these things. Again, diagram is not accurate because for some reason it has become our nature. Means you don't also think about it. Say you have flow. If somebody gives you to study flow over a cylinder, for some reason most people take the flow direction to be like this. Okay. If you think about cases where you are not solving a physical problem, but like a problem like this, mathematical problem, and you take the outflow condition like this, okay, or flow over a car is there, or flow over aerofoil is there. Okay, if I have a aerofoil structure here, like this, so we take the boundary condition v is equal to 1 meter per second or whatever from this side and keep this other side open. Okay, you might see many research papers or other projects, BTP projects, MTP projects like this. Okay. Same problem if I want to solve using the code, like a code which is not very robust. If you take commercial packages, code will be very robust. They must have done for all the other types of. So in that case, it will run properly. But say it's code written by a student. So if I have this instead of this problem, if I have this problem, okay, result should be exactly same. Lift coefficient, drag coefficient, everything should be same. And I have just changed the orientation of the aerofoil and the flow direction. This is the outflow direction, and the boundary condition, velocity condition is given in the other direction. Okay, but in many cases we see that convergence is actually quite tough in that case. Okay, so nature, depending on the nature of the problem, if you know the sweeping direction, so if you are not using a commercial package like Fluent, so in Fluent these things should be taken care of because they might have built, or you might have to change the scheme to some other scheme so that convergence occurs. But if you are using some personally written code, say some group or some lab has written a code, in that case, if you know the sweeping direction, if it is using line by line TDMA, then it is better if we try to align our flow direction with the sweeping direction to get faster convergence, and chances of convergence will also increase. Okay. So for example, our code also has the similar problem like the code that my students use. So in those cases also, because it does not matter which direction we take the flow. For the physical problem, the results are same. We take the flow from the left hand side to ensure faster convergence. So we will finish with one last point. And I will just briefly introduce the next topic. So there is something called under relaxation. So any questions about the solution methods that we have discussed?
No,
Sir,
sir.
actually, sir,
Sir,
Sorry,
that value which you are taking for each point, the previous iteration value,
yes.
e to the power k minus 1, and didn't understand that because already the left side vertical line we know, but right side vertical line we don't know, no, sir.
Correct, correct. So you know the previous values, right? It is a iterative process. Let me explain. Okay, it is not that we are going for one pass, right? So I
Okay,
think
it is a mini
that
pass.
yes. Let me yeah. So for others also,
So
let me
for
confirm.
fast pass, how you can know the
You have to take from the previous time step value or initial condition, or means some initial assumption, initialization you have to do.
it, so
Means
for
for
the first step, first iteration, what should be the e to the power k minus 1 value?
Sir, that is based on boundary condition and the initial conditions, right?
it is based on the initial condition if it is a transient problem. If it is not a yes, so let me explain. All these points are to means all these questions are connected. Okay, so let me explain the entire nature of the solution. There can be two types of problem: steady state or unsteady, right? So for a steady state problem, you don't have any initial condition, right? You only have boundary condition. Is it clear to everyone, right? It is clear, right? That steady state problem will only have boundary condition. You don't have any initial condition because there is no change with time. So there is no equation or there is no term with time. Okay. So in that case, if you want to do this iterative process, say you know the values at the boundaries or you have some information about the values like dt dx equal to 0 or k dt dx equal to some value. The internal grid point values are not known in that case for a steady state problem. You have to start with some assumed values. Okay. It is up to you to decide what is the assumed value. Like what we have shown in this case, if you remember the previous class, we have started with value of 0. But I have said that we could have started with 1 also. I think I have shown also one example. What happens if you start with 1? Or I can start with -1 also or 100, whatever is the value. Okay. Because all the internal grid point values or all the unknown values, if the boundary conditions are also in terms of unknown temperature like dt dx equal to 0, all the values are unknown. So you have to start with a guess value. Okay, guess value of temperature. This is known as initialization in a CFD problem. Not initial condition, okay, initialization. You have to initialize your matrix with a certain value. So you have a T matrix, temperature matrix, which has a 10 by 10 size, like 100 points. You give some initial value. For example, for temperature, if I don't know any value, I may initialize it with 300 Kelvin. Okay, although the actual temperature may be 1000 Kelvin. So based, if I have more information, if I know the temperature at some boundary, I may use that temperature for initialization because I am expecting that the internal temperature will be of the order of the boundary temperature or boundary value. Okay, so that may be a better initial guess, but ultimately you have to start with an initial guess. Without any initial guess, it is not possible. So Nikhilesh, you are raising the point, right, that from initial and boundary condition we will know. So
Yes.
yeah, so for steady state problem, because there is no initial condition, boundary condition only gives you a hint. So you can guess the values or initialize the values with some guess value based on the order of the boundary condition. Say if the temperature of the boundary condition is 1000 instead of 300, it will be a better guess most probably if I take all the internal values as 1000 initially instead of 300. Although 300 should also work, but 1000 may be a better guess. Similarly for flow, if there is flow, okay, and say the flow is say it's like pipe flow problem, okay, it's like or like the aerofoil problem that I was showing. Okay, boundary condition is given to us. Okay, it's just a steady state problem. Okay, boundary condition is given to us as 0.1 meter per second. Now I can initialize all the internal values of the grid points. If it's a steady state problem, obviously there is no initial condition. All the internal values I can take guess value of u to be 0. But a better guess may be the boundary value, which is 0.1. So if I take 0.1, the convergence will be, most probably it will be faster because you are starting from a value which is most likely to be near to the solution. Okay, I can also take 100 to be all the initial values. In that case, chances of convergence or convergence speed itself will be much worse. Okay, so initialization itself plays an important role. And even in commercial software, there is a panel for initialization. If you do not know or if you are just blindly solving, you can take a look there and you will see that some initialization is occurring somewhere. Either it is taking some 0 values or it is taking from boundary condition, the values. It is just that it is this package or commercial software like Fluent is helping you. Unknowingly you are giving that initialization without knowing, but actually it is being taken inside that initial guess value. Okay, there is a place where you can initialize values. If I write my own code, I have to actually initialize, give the initial guess values. Okay, otherwise we cannot start the problem. So that is true for steady state problem. For unsteady problem, obviously you have the initial condition. So all the points will have some initial value already given because initial condition needs to be valid for the entire domain. Okay, unlike boundary condition. Initial condition means that temperature or velocity is given for the entire domain. So you already have a value. You start with that value for the next time step. First iteration. Okay, first iteration of the next time step. You don't have the previous iteration value because it's the first iteration. but you have the previous time step value. You can take the previous time step value as the guess value for all the points and start the iteration. Okay. Now what will happen? You proceed one by one each line and finish one set of iterations, but you cannot stop there because you are not reaching the correct solution because you started with a guess value. Okay. So again you have to sweep. Okay, now I can sweep in another direction or in this direction. As I was saying, I can alternate the sweeping direction. So I can sweep in another direction. And then I will compare the value. Yes. Tell me.
Sir, initialization, is there a possibility that if we take certain value, then the solution will not converge at all?
It may happen. mm, Difficult for me to say. It should not
Sir,
happen ideally. It
s-
convergence rate should be because if your coefficient, if you this depends on the methods. If line by line TDMA, convergence should slow down. If you are using Gauss Seidel or this type of methods, convergence will be guaranteed if you are satisfying this Scarborough criteria, where the value actually does not play a role. If you take a look at the equation, the value does not play a role. Means value of the variable does not play a role. Only the coefficient plays the role in the Scarborough criteria. Okay.
okay, sir.
So what will happen is the if you use those methods, uh,
Yes, sir. Is it
coefficient.
because the error, if we actually take the error, then the multiplication factor in these cases, by applying Scarborough's criteria, it is actually decreasing with each iteration.
Correct. Correct. Physically, it is that. So even if you take very unrealistic value, so if I start with say 100 or 1000, x1 equal to 1000, x2 equal to 1000, but Scarborough criteria is satisfied, like we have seen in the previous class, right?
Yes,
In
sir.
that, it will still go towards the correct solution because in each iteration, you are changing by a small fraction. If you take a look at the two situations, what is happening, you are correct in the physical interpretation. Okay. See, in this case, okay, the previous iteration value, only a part of it or fraction of it is being used as a change for the new iteration value. Okay. Whereas if you are not satisfying this Scarborough criteria, a very large multiple of the previous iteration is value is being used for a change in the new iteration value. Okay. So because the changes are more rapid, there is change of chance of divergence for this if you don't satisfy Scarborough criteria. So what will happen if I take x1 equal to 1000 and x2 equal to 1000 here is that they will converge, but converge slowly. Means because you are starting from a very far away point, you will come to this point, come to this type of solution, but number of iterations will increase. Okay. For line by line TDMA, I am not sure about your question. Okay. TDMA part should get guaranteed result, means the line should get guaranteed result. In the other direction, most probably I think still this type of criteria needs to be satisfied. Otherwise, again, it may blow up in the other directions, in the sweeping directions. But that is my guess. I am not sure. Okay.
Yes, sir. Got your point, sir. I just got confused with one problem.
Okay.
Sir, this is related about Fluent. Sir, what is the difference between standard initialization and hybrid initialization in that?
Actually, I am not sure because I don't use Fluent, so I don't know this terminology. Because these are these are not CFD terminology. These are typical or say terminology that Fluent is using. So you can just check the values for standard initialization what they are doing. Are they writing the values? What is the initial value for the means?
Yes, sir. In standard initialization, we get a choice to write our own values, but in hybrid initialization, we don't have.
Maybe they are in that case like for novice users they are just taking because they are the user may get confused about what should be the initial values. They may be taking from some guess value depending on the known condition like boundary condition or something like that, like I was saying for the velocity. So Fluent can directly use the value of the inlet velocity as a guess velocity for all the points, right? And it will be a good initial value. Okay.
Okay,
A
sir.
bad initial condition bad initial condition in this problem will be that boundary condition is velocity is 1 meter per second, but all the grid points I am taking as minus 1 meter per second, means on the opposite direction my initial condition is there. That is a bad initialization. Okay, that also still should work, but convergence rate of convergence will be much slower. It might be difficult to get convergence. Okay. And if nothing is known, better to take 0 or 1 or something like that. If no information is there, many cases no information will be there. So instead of say temperature at this boundary, it may be that k dt dx is equal to some value, or k dt dx is 0, adiabatic condition, right? Then no temperature is known to you, no specific value of temperature. So in that case, there is no choice also for gas value, or no guidance for gas value. You have to just initialize based on your gut feeling. Okay, no option is there. But remember that for a transient problem, only for the first time step this problem will be there. From the next time step onwards, the previous time step value will act as the initialization or first iteration calculation. So no problem will be there. So in many cases, you will see that for the 1 or 2 time steps, it takes a lot of iterations to converge, and then after that it starts converging very smoothly. Means there is no difficulty in convergence. Okay, but for the first few time steps, it may take a few iterations to converge. Okay. We will keep on discussing. Parallelly, let me just run a program, because I was running a few cases for some problems. So you will already let me just show you some case. Okay, not this one. Let me show you this, because today I have time. So, how the cases actually run if you write a code. While we keep on discussing, we'll just run it on the other side. So this is what I am telling. You will see that because my initialization has been difficult here, there is some boundary velocity in this problem. I am not going to the problem details, but there is some boundary velocity from the left side of the domain. But I am initializing the entire domain with 0 velocity instead of that boundary velocity for certain reason. Okay, because there are a lot of solid parts inside, and I don't want to put that initial condition everywhere. Okay, so what is happening is that you can check that there is no convergence. Okay, so after I have given a limit of 100 iterations in a time step. This is a transient problem. In a time step, I have given 100 iterations. After 100 iterations, my error is 9.5 into 10 to the power minus 5 for the u direction, and for the v velocity, my error is 1.3 into 10 to the power minus 4. Okay, so my convergence criteria is much strict in this case, because I am solving an actual problem. I don't want to use 10 to the power minus 3. If I use 10 to the power minus 3, this would have shown that it has converged. But because I am using a stricter convergence criteria of 10 to the power minus 5 or minus 6, something like that, I think 10 to the power minus 5. So it is taking, after even 100 iteration, it is going down the error, but this is the maximum error, means at a certain grid point this error is occurring. Okay, not every error. This is not the error, this is the change from one time step to the other time step. Sorry, from one iteration to the other iteration. And gradually what you will see is that this value is decreasing. So for example, it was 9.5, then it has become 8.99 into 10 to the power minus 3, 4.8 into 6.6 into 10 to the power, sorry, 10 to the power minus 5, 4.8, like this it is decreasing. So after a few iterations, which does not matter initially, because we run these problems for 1 million, 2 million time steps. Okay. So for a few time steps, if it does not converge, it does not matter for me, because ultimately once it starts converging, so see, after this it has started converging. After a few iterations, the velocity field has started converging, and we are getting results, which is, so after 18 iterations, so this may be there for a few iterations, there may be still be non-convergence, but after that it will stabilize, and finally it will start running very smoothly. I will just keep it open and you can check that still it is taking lot of iterations for convergence, but gradually the number of iterations will change, because it is taking better and better gauge values for the next time step. Velocity is stabilizing, the solution becomes easier and easier for subsequent time steps. This is using line by line TDMA. So parallelly, let us discuss this part. Okay, today's last topic. So there is something called over relaxation and under relaxation. Okay, so in certain cases, in certain problems or solution methods, you want the solution, you want to speed up the solution, speed up the rate of convergence. Okay, and in certain cases you want to slow down the rate of convergence. So in cases you want to speed up the rate of convergence, means you want to converge in lesser number of iterations, we need to use something called over relaxation. Okay, the advantage of using over relaxation is that the number of iterations to reach convergence is much faster, but the disadvantage is that the chances of convergence are reduced. Means these two things are different. Okay, one is the number of iterations for convergence, and second thing is chance of convergence. Okay, so if the number of iterations for a convergence is less, it does not mean that chances of convergence is more. Okay, for example, here the changes were rapid. Okay, if the changes are rapid, if it had gone to the correct direction, the number of iterations for convergence would have been less. But if the changes is rapid, the chance is that it has more chance of going in the opposite direction also, and in that case the chances of divergence will become more. Okay, so this is like a compromise. You want to increase the speed of convergence, but at the risk of increasing the chance of divergence. Okay, and similarly, so this, what I was just saying, over relaxation, I will show what is over relaxation, but this is often used for Gauss-Seidel method. Okay, because the rate of convergence is slow for this Gauss-Seidel or Jacobi type of method. In these cases, if the changes are low, and if you satisfy this Scarborough criteria, you can accelerate the convergence rate by using something called over relaxation. I will show you how the over relaxation is done, but it is often used for Gauss-Seidel method. Okay. On the other hand, in many cases, you want to slow down the convergence. You might think that why should I slow down the convergence? It will take more time for solving. Okay, what is the point in slowing down the convergence? But the idea is that if you slow down the convergence, the chances of convergence are significantly increased. Okay, so if you have a highly nonlinear equation like the momentum equation, which is highly nonlinear, right? Or some other nonlinear, say energy equation can become nonlinear if the conductivity is dependent on temperature. Okay, so in those, or the source term is nonlinear in temperature, nonlinear function of temperature. If you have a nonlinear equation in those type of problems, it is better to slow down the convergence so that in each iteration the change is smaller. Slowing down the convergence means in each iteration the change will be smaller than expected. So the chances of convergence will increase, and fast means increasing the speed of convergence means that in each time step, in each iteration, the change will be larger. So the convergence will be faster, but the chances of convergence will be reduced, because in each iteration the change is larger. You can go to the wrong direction, more to the wrong direction. Say you want to, the correct solution is 1 and previous gauge value is 3. Okay, previous iterative value is 3. So in one time step, say you change the value by 10. So instead of 3, you go to -7. Okay, So it has already gone further away from, it has gone to the correct direction. Correct direction was say from 3 to 1. It has gone towards the correct side, but it has crossed the correct value and gone much further to the other side, -7. So in this type of cases, over relaxation will lead to big problem. Okay. So under relaxation is very often used. In all problems, generally we use under relaxation when we use this line by line TDMA method, and particularly required for non-linear problems. Okay. And you will see some parameter called relaxation factor or under relaxation factor or relaxation criteria, something like that for different CFD solver like ANSYS Fluent. Okay, where you can take some value of the parameter, and those can be reduced if you are not getting convergence. Those values can be reduced for the momentum equations or for other variables to increase the chances of convergence. That will slow down the convergence rate but increase the chances of convergence. Let us see what actually it means to have this over relaxation or under relaxation. You can now see that it is just taking 4 iterations in each time step to go to the converge to the correct solution with a strict convergence criteria of 10 to the power -5. Okay, I will just close this. Just wanted to show that initially how things take a time and then it starts converging. Okay, so the best approach would have been for me to initially keep the number of iterations limit to be high. So instead of capping it at 100, if I had tried for 1000 iterations, I would have most probably got the converged solution after 200 or 300 iterations. And later on, I can reduce the capping value. Okay, anyway, it is getting converged. So
It's the answer the problem, no, sir?
It's the answer to the problem. I can show you also result just as a like to satisfy the curiosity. This problem will take long time to run, maybe 3-4 days to run, or at least 1 or 2 days to run if it's a very good system. And the final result, so it has not run much. So actual problem will take a lot of time. So I will show the actual result how it looks like. This is from one of the MTech students. Okay, project from one of the MTech students, which is on energy storage, phase change material based energy storage, considering encapsulated PCM. So there are capsules of PCM. PCM is phase change material, some organic or inorganic material, which can melt at high temperature and take up heat and can solidify at low temperature to release heat. Okay, and this we wanted to model and simulate using our own code and put some additional details and study by writing our own code. So let this open up. We will keep on discussing, continuing our discussion. It will take some time to load because it's a large value. So I have written this often used for line by line TDMA method, particularly required for nonlinear problems. Okay. So if you remember the form of the discretized equation, what is the form of the discretized equation? APTP is equal to summation A and B TNB plus B. This is true for any discretized equation, whether it is a transient problem, steady state problem, conductive means diffusive problem, or convective diffusive problem, which we will encounter later on, or has a source term or does not have a source term. All the problems have somewhat similar form. Okay, unsteady problem. Maybe the B will become 0 if there is no source term at all, and it's a steady state problem. But ultimately, this is the form. So for an iteration, if we directly calculate the t value, if it is possible to directly calculate the t value, so t should be equal to, for the pth grid point, t should be equal to summation A and B TNB plus B by AP. Okay, by direct calculation for that grid point. So in one iteration, the actual change in the value of TP should be this value that can be directly calculated in this iteration, where TP is the current iteration value, minus TP star, where TP star is the previous iteration value. Say we already know the previous iteration value for all the grid points. Okay, we already know the previous iteration value of all the grid points, and in the current grid point, we know all the previous iteration value for the current grid point, and for this iteration, we are trying to find out this grid point value. Okay, I will repeat again because I think I have confused you guys. So we have a grid point P where we know all the previous iteration value. Okay, the last iteration value is known as TP star. Now the current iteration value, it is unknown and I want to calculate it. Okay, if I can directly solve this equation based on these values of T and B, okay, I will get the current iteration value as summation A and B T and B plus B by AP. This T and B can be known, like these T and Bs are the latest known values. It can be current iteration or previous iteration depending on Gauss-Seidel or any type of method. Okay, line by line TDMA. So some of the values will be new values, updated values, some will be old values, but all are latest values, latest known values. Okay, so this should be the change in one iteration, TP as calculated like this minus TP star. So what is done for under or over relaxation is that this change is increased or decreased. Instead of having this change, we change it by a small fraction of this change for under relaxation, and for over relaxation we change it by a larger fraction of this change. Okay, so we can write this as TP is equal to TP star plus TP minus TP star, same thing, right? So the current iteration value TP should be equal to TP star plus TP minus TP star. Okay, or I can write this as TP star plus summation A and B T and B plus B by AP minus TP star. Okay, so this is without any relaxation. This is the actual change that should have occurred, means we would have got this value after the actual change. Instead of this, if we introduce a factor alpha like this, okay, if we update the new value as T is equal to TP star plus alpha into what would have been hypothetically the new value minus the previous iteration value, we can accelerate or slow down the convergence. How? If the alpha value is larger than 1, in that case, whatever the value is given by this change, we are increasing it. Like if the change is 3.6 and alpha is 1.5, so you are multiplying 1.5 into 3.6 to the previous iteration value. So you are moving more towards one direction. Okay, this is known as over relaxation, and this type of thing you will use for Gauss-Seidel method. On the other hand, for under relaxation, alpha is taken between 0 and 1. Okay, if you take alpha to be 0.5, the actual change might have been equal to 3.6, but you are just taking 0.5 of that. Okay, so what is happening? You are going slowly towards the correct direction. Even if you go to the wrong direction, it might be like the problem that I was saying, right? Say in one iteration, your change is occurring as 10. So I will just repeat that problem. You have the correct solution as 1, which you don't know obviously. Your previous iteration value is 3, and in one iteration, the value is changing by 10 after calculation. So from 3, you are going to the correct direction, but by 10. So from 3, you are moving to minus 7. Okay. So in that case, if you don't use a relaxation, you are going far away from the previous case. The previous iteration error was only 2, 3 minus 1. Now the new error is 8, means 1 minus 7. Absolute error is 8. Okay, actually error has increased. But if you use a under relaxation, very small under relaxation factor like 0.1, so instead of 10, you will change the value by 1 only. So instead of going from 3 to minus 7, you will go from 3 to 2. Okay, so you are moving to the correct direction. Okay, so you cannot know what should be the exact under relaxation parameter. Typically for momentum equation, people take 0.5, 0.6 like this. But if you see that convergence, there is a problem. If you are using a fluent solution or some other solver, you can reduce it even up to 0.1. Okay, it will slow down the convergence rate, but in chances of convergence will increase. You can make it 0.3, 0.2 or 0.1 like this. Only thing is that you should take the same under relaxation factor for both U and V direction. Okay, so if you are taking for U momentum, you take it 0.1, take it for same for the V momentum also. And you can have separate under relaxation factor for the temperature equation, energy equation. Energy equations are generally easier to converge. So sometimes you can take larger, like 0.8 also under relaxation factor. But we always take under relaxation factor, but it can be taken larger because there is less chances of non-linearity. Momentum equations have intrinsic non-linearity because of the nature of the momentum equation. Okay. So if alpha is between 0 and 1, we call this as under relaxation, where the alpha is known as the relaxation factor. If alpha is greater than 1, we call it as over relaxation. Okay. So under relaxation slows down the convergence, increases the chances of convergence. Over relaxation speeds up the convergence, but chances of divergence also increases. Okay. And under relaxation is used for typically for most of the common problems that like fluid flow type of problems, nonlinear problems. over relaxations can be sometimes used, typically for Gauss-Seidel type of solution method. So if you use over relaxation for Gauss-Seidel method, there is a method called successive over relaxation or SOR. Okay, for where you successively just keep on using over relaxation using the Gauss-Seidel method. Means Gauss-Seidel method with over relaxation leads to this successive. So you might have heard SOR or successive over relaxation method. We will not go into the details, but it is the same as Gauss-Seidel method, but with over relaxation. Okay, to speed up the rate of convergence. The final thing to note here is that when iterations converge, okay, anyway TP will become equal to TP star in the limit that iterations have converged. The old iteration and new iteration value should be equal. Okay, ideally means if the like at the limit of convergence, and in this case it does not matter what is the change that you are taking here. Means anyway, because this change will become 0, so this alpha value does not matter. So any alpha value should not change the correct solution. Okay, it just change the speed of solution and chances of going towards the correct solution, but the correct solution will not change, because at the correct solution anyway this change is 0. Okay, so when the iterations converge values satisfy the original equation. Okay, because some might have asked that this is the original equation, I am modifying the equation, whether it is introducing some error or not. It does not introduce any error. Okay, so here we are going to we have finished this part and all the associated small other details also of finite volume method. And what we have done is we have, out of the 4 important terms, out of the 4 terms of a governing equation, we have tackled 3 terms and just left 1 term only. Okay, and we know how to tackle all these 3 terms except the convective term. So if I have an equation like this, general equation like this, okay, del T of say rho phi plus del dot rho u phi is equal to del dot gamma del phi plus source term s phi. If you go back to the notes towards the initial classes, you will see that this is our general equation for any of the conservations. Momentum equations has some additional terms like the pressure term is there, but in general this is the form of the equation. Okay, there is an unsteady term, there is a convective term, there is a diffusive term and a source term. So we know now how to tackle this term and this term. We have only left out this particular term, convective term. Okay, so for all the other cases we should be able to solve the problem. Okay, so to treat the convective term is slightly more tricky to treat, and that is what we are going to start from the next class. Okay, so what we are going to do is, so this equation can be for any of the variable. For example, for energy equation I can write this as del T of rho Cpt plus del dot rho u Cpt is equal to del dot conductivity K del T plus some source term. Okay, SC or SH or something like that. So this is so like the same equation but for energy balance. So for solving any of these equations except the momentum equations, we need to know the velocity values. Okay, so del dot u, so it means that in 1D you need the u velocity component if it is a 1D problem. If it is a 2D problem, you need the u and v velocity components, and for a 3D problem you need the 3 velocity components, say u, v and w. Okay, so this can be, so we are not bothered initially how these are supplied to us. Okay, so these u, v and w values can be supplied to us by solving the momentum equations, or this can be supplied to us by some experimental investigation. So after the experiment, say flow through a pipe, after measurement of velocities, we already know the velocity at certain points. Okay, we know the velocity distribution in the pipe. Okay, and we will use that for solving the energy equation numerically, or it can be some solution of analytical expression, like analytical solution. Again, for flow through a pipe, we know the analytical solution that the flow profile should look in fully developed condition. It has a parabolic profile with no slip condition, for no slip condition. So again, we know the actual velocity profile. So it does not matter how you know the velocity. Okay, it can be gauge velocity also, which may lead to wrong result, but it can be some velocity. Okay, that velocity, the thing is that the velocity is already known while solving this equation for temperature. Okay, this is already known factor. And with this condition, we want to see how this term is treated, how the convective term is treated. So when you solve the convective equation, you already know the u value from some previous calculation or previous solution of the momentum equation or experimental evidence or whatever. Okay, or it has been directly given to you, or impose velocity profile. So directly somebody says that this is the velocity profile I am going to impose on the problem based on some magnetic stirring or something like that. Okay, so whatever is the velocity profile. So in theoretical cases, many cases we impose the velocity profile. Say velocity profile of a vortex. We already know how it will look like, so we impose it to see what change is occurring to the shape of a bubble in a vortex or things like that. Okay, so where we don't need to solve for the velocity, but we need to solve for other things like temperature and other variables. So that we will tackle next. And at the end of the course, then not at the end, means then after that we will see how to actually calculate the velocities by solving the Navier-Stokes equation, which is tricky, as you know, as those who have done already CFD course knows. The momentum equation solution is much tricky because of multiple reasons. One is that the momentum equation is non-linear. These equations were not non-linear, these equations, unless some parameter like k or s becomes non-linear or density. These equations are not non-linear, but momentum equation itself has coefficients which also have the velocity. Okay, so they are non-linear in nature. The coefficient itself have velocity, like u dot del u. This type of terms are there. And the second important point is that the pressure is there, pressure gradient, and there is no equation for pressure. So that is actually difficult to tackle. And certain special methods are needed. Again, those who have done already knows. A lot of methods are there, simple method, simpler method. Similarly, other methods are also there. Okay, so simplex. So a lot of different type of methods are there. So we will study these two topics next after this. Okay, so we will stop here. So we will move on to the next chapter of Patankar. So you can read this material, what I have studied or discussed till now is from Patankar book only. Okay, so you can go through it. It is given in similar details. The book is very good. It is like a notes only. So you don't have to read too much also, but all the essential information is still there. Okay. So short and to the point. Very nice book. Very fundamental. So I was trying to show you this before taking the attendance. The actual problems, actual CFD problems when you solve using a code, how it looks like. So we have created a domain where the number of grid points is 200 by 200. Okay, including boundary, it is 202 by 202. Otherwise, it is 200 by 200. And this is how the mesh will look like. All this is writing by writing the code. And initially, the temperature everywhere is 303, and hot fluid is coming from one side with a certain velocity, 0.1 centimeter per second, slow velocity. And we have capsules or spheres which contain phase change material in between, arranged in this zigzag fashion. Okay, and outside these spheres there is liquid water which will flow outside at a high temperature, so that the material in the spheres get melted with time and store energy. And that is what we want to study. Okay, so same method what we have discussed. This is using simpler algorithm. Alternate direction implicit means that sweeping is in alternate direction, and under relaxation also is there. I don't remember the exact under relaxation factor that we have used, but it is there. So if you look at this problem, Initially temperature is like this, then with time the temperature, the flow, hot flow is coming from this left side, and is what is happening is that wherever there is liquid water, their temperature remains high. Wherever there are capsules, the temperature gets arrested because of latent heat, because it needs certain latent heat for the phase change material to melt. So temperature remains at the near the melting point, which is around 335 Kelvin. Okay, and downstream from this, because the energy of the water has been taken out, the water temperature is decreased. You will see from downstream from each of the capsule, the water temperature is actually decreased. Okay, so as a result, all the energy of the water is being taken out by the capsules, and it is stored in the capsules. And after some time, the entire capsule will get melted. And our like this main objective is to see how we can enhance this melting rate by studying different designs or different modifications. So this is how the melting takes place. Okay, this is a coarse grid, so you can see that the circles are not very circular in nature, but this is like because of plotting error. Actually, it can be plotted so that it is nicely shown, and how the melting proceeds with time. So if I run it, you can see that. So this type of problems or any of these type of problems can be solved by writing a code. Also in Fluent also you can solve, but writing code has its advantages, like any of the physics, extra physics can be easily put. So if I want to put something extra, it can be easily put. So let us stop here, and next class is on Tuesday, right? So we will discuss on Tuesday. I will take the attendance. I could not, I am sorry, I could not complete checking your copy. I think I have to fight during the weekend to finish it. This is like not normal, but this time I am unable because of other reasons. Anyway. So I will just send you the marks in that case once the checking is finished. Previous students will know that generally I show it within 1 week, but this time situation is such that it has become quite difficult. So please wait for the attendance. Today's date is 13th. Stop the recording. No.